Hello everybody, it's Kara from Wild Book Garden, and today I'm here with my version of a TBR game, which is very basic, but I'm having fun. And this is based on a deck of playing cards I have that are all Jane Austen themed, like from her main novels. So I will link the first video I did like this down below in case you want just a little more information on why I'm doing this and how. But yeah, I'm going to use it to pick 8 books for my February TBR, and these are not like strict, I have to read these or anything. This is honestly just a way to so I can talk about readathons and books that I'm excited to read without feeling so much pressure that I put on myself. Yeah, so general plans for the month. I know Jessie from Bowties and Books is doing Blackathon again, and I definitely think I'm definitely gonna participate. I don't know if I'm going to pick a team or kind of like mix and match some of the prompts, but I will link all of that information down below. February is Black History Month here in the US, and obviously it's important to read Black authors all year round, but I do especially want to focus on that this month. And then also Fantasy Romance February is happening, and I've been, like, a lot of the indie fantasy I read I think could be considered fantasy romance, so I'd like to pick a few of those as well. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I also have, of course, multiple read-alongs and things going on, like the Fairyland read-along we're doing, Past Classics, of course, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Anyway, all that info will also be in the description. So let's just get started. I'm gonna pick the cards, read you guys the prompts, and then I will go and select the books. Okay, so we have Mrs. Weston from Emma. Oh, and that is to read a book by a favorite author. I love that. As I've mentioned before, a lot of these prompts are things that, like, I'm actually really excited about, which I think is good. And the reason this is like Mrs. Weston as the favorite author is because she was Emma's like governess, and so I thought, like, you know, authorship, governess, I don't know, and also they're very close, so like favorite. I'm not doing a great job of explaining these, but it's fine. Ooh, John Thorpe from Northanger Abbey. That prompt is to read a creepy book, because if you've read Northanger Abbey, John Thorpe is kind of a creep. So that'll be a fun one to pick out. Lydia Bennet from Pride and Prejudice, and that one is to read an underhyped book. And the reason I picked that prompt for Lydia is because even though she's not like a favorite character for me, I do think that she gets done pretty dirty, not only in the original novel, but like, just like in general. It's like, I feel a lot of sympathy for her because of what happens to her, even though she is very frustrating and makes some horrible choices and all of that. William Price from Mansfield Park. I just showed you that in the most awkward way, but it's fine. That one is to read a book involving water. So that could be on the cover, in the premise, the plot, whatever, in the title even. And that is because one of the only things that I remember about William Price is that he's a sailor, and he's very passionate about that. Like, I do remember that his and Fanny's sibling relationship is really lovely, but honestly, one of the defining features of William Price is water. Like, he's very excited about the ocean. So that's what I was thinking there. We are halfway done. Oh, and like I mentioned before, if I pick 4 from the same novel, then I have to add an extra prompt. Okay, Mrs. Jennings from Sense and Sensibility. That is to read a book I'm unsure about. Ooh, that's a good one. I say as if I didn't come up with these prompts. The reason for that one is because I have very mixed feelings about Mrs. Jennings, because she is a really well-written character. She can be very funny, and she does really love and care about Eleanor and Marianne, and like, she's a very loving person. Her heart is in the right place, but also the ways that she goes about things are sometimes awful. Like, just she would be such a frustrating person to know in real life. So I don't know, unsure about. And Mary Crawford from Mansfield Park. That is to read a retelling. Why did I pick that one? Like, how did I come up with that? I honestly can't remember why I picked that for her. Maybe it was related to the play? No, that wouldn't make sense either. I don't remember, but the prompt is to read a retelling, and wherever I came up with that, at some point it made sense to me. So I'm sure it was a great prompt. Just like, I'm sure it was a great reason. I just don't know what that was. And Mr. Rushworth, also from Mansfield Park. That is to read a book that has a strong setting. So like a significant setting, you know. And that is because his estate is a big part of Mansfield Park. Like, a lot of important plot things and scenes involve his estate. All right, last one. Charlotte Palmer. Whoops. It's funny, I was actually just looking at that one on my list here, and that is to read a book that is 400 plus pages, and that is because Charlotte Palmer talks a lot. I feel really bad for her, the way that some characters treat her, but she does talk a lot. So that was the reasoning there. I'm going to pick that card up off the floor and go and pick some books and come back. Okay, I'm back. I think my battery is running low, so I'm gonna try and speed through these pretty quickly. I have Reign and Ruin by J.D. Evans. This is the one I picked for Mrs. Jennings, a book I'm unsure about. And that's because this is a fantasy romance that is not the kind I tend to pick up, but I've heard really great things about this from Bethany at Beautifully Bookish Bethany, and I think she's even described it as one that's good if you're a fantasy reader who's like looking to dip your toe into fantasy romance, which I think would definitely be me. And I think this is going to be, I don't know, I think it's going to have a lot of like political stuff and a lot of plot, which I tend to like romances that are more of like a subplot. So we'll see, but I am kind of unsure about it, which is why I picked it. By the way, these are in no particular order. Next, I have two options, because I came across this book. I was like, oh, that would have been a good one to pick, but I really want to read the book I already picked for that prompt. And then I was like, wait, I remember last time I just made up a rule that I can include two options for one prompt. So that's what I'm doing. I would ideally like to get to both of these. I'm really excited for both of them, but if I only get to one, that's okay. And this is for William Price, so involving water. And I have Eden's Everdark by Karen Strong. This is a very short, creepy middle grade book that is set on an island, so involves water, and our main character Eden is really having a hard time grieving the death of her mother, and then she ends up finding her mother's old sketchbook, and it kind of leads her to start exploring the island in this creepy old house. Then she ends up stumbling into a parallel world, and it seems really great, but that's actually not the case. I think a lot of creepy things happen. There's also a black cat companion, which I love, so I really am excited to get to this one. And then I could finish off a duology if I read this next book. That is Soul of the Deep by Natasha Bowen. This is the sequel and the concluding volume to Skin of the Sea, which I really enjoyed last year. I haven't heard a ton about it, but I personally really liked it, and yeah, I think the first book left off in a really interesting way, and it's kind of a loose Little Mermaid retelling that deals with like African folklore, and it's like around the time that the slave trade was starting, so it got pretty heavy in the first book, but I'm really looking forward to continuing that series and finishing it off. Then John Thorpe is to read a creepy book, and I have a couple that already, like Eden's Everdark definitely could have counted, but I also picked Through the Mirror Door by Sarah Baker. I don't know a ton about this one, except that it's a creepy middle grade. Our main character Angela ends up at a crumbling French manor house, and is there like possibly, I don't know, she like meets a boy named Julian, and it says, is it too late to save him? So I don't know what that means, but I think there's gonna be some very good atmosphere. It's also one of those that like has a quote and then a vague description instead of like a synopsis. So I'm not exactly sure what it's about, but it sounds intriguing. Then for the 400 plus pages book for Charlotte Palmer, I picked Blood Like Magic by Lizelle Sambury. This is the first book in a series that, first off, gorgeous cover. And this is another one I heard Bethany talking about, and I know she just really loved the author's upcoming book, but that one I think is too horror for me. But this is a fantasy, and our main character, she gets like it's like a command or like something like a challenge, a quest almost, that she needs to complete in order to come into her full powers. I think she's a witch. And then that quest is that she has to kill her true love, I think. So now she has to like find somebody and fall in love with them and then kill them. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of drama. Oh, okay. And it's like a specific guy, because there's like a genetic matchmaking program, but it's like he doesn't want anything to do with her, and she's like, well, how can I fall in love with you and sacrifice you if you won't talk to me? So it sounds like it's gonna be like a hate to love thing, which I'm very excited about. You guys know I'm trash for that trope. when it's done well, which I feel like this one is going to be done well. Okay. I am not going through these very quickly. For Mr. Rushworth, that is to read a book that has a strong setting element. And I picked How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith, A Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America. This is a nonfiction, and I picked it because it is very much connected to place and setting. Clint Smith is like doing, kind of traveling with, I think, his son, and to different like, monuments or like historical sites in the US, and talking about the history of African Americans and slavery, and I've heard nothing but incredible things about this book. I mean, it's won like a ton of awards, and this is going to be part of a challenge video. I'm not sure when that's going up, but you'll hear more about it then. But yeah, I'm glad to finally be reading this one because I think it's going to be really well done, and I know he's a poet as well, so I think the writing is going to be excellent. Then, I'm laughing because I'm embarrassed. For Mary Crawford, that is to read a retelling, and I'm so embarrassed that I haven't read this yet. I'm a bad friend. Sorry, Julia. The Last Wife by Kate Hennig, and this is such a, it's a play. It's so short. I don't know why I haven't read it. I'm so sorry. But this is a retelling of which part of, yeah, so Kate Parr. So this is a modern retelling of the relationship of Catherine Parr and Henry VIII. And I feel like I'm gonna love Kate Hennig. I just like need to read her. I'm sorry, Julia. I'm a bad friend. I also think it's really funny that this is the Mary Crawford prompt because Julie and I are both trash for the Crawfords. I mean, specifically Henry Crawford, but I feel like it still works. Then for Lydia Bennet, I had to pick an underhyped book, and I went with Agrippina by Emma Southon, The Most Extraordinary Woman of the Roman World. This is another nonfiction, and another, like, you'll see an upcoming TBR video that involves this book as well, so I guess this is like a teaser for upcoming content. But I really, really loved Emma Southon's nonfiction book she wrote after this one, which is A Fatal Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. I just talked about that in my December wrap-up, so I'll link that down below, but I thought that was brilliant, and I'm really excited to read another nonfiction by her that's about a woman in the ancient world, no less, which is something I really enjoy. Yeah, I can't wait to get to this, and my lovely friend Mary Margaret is the one who gifted this to me, so I am excited to have that on my list. And then I think this is the last one. Okay. The last one is for Mrs. Weston, which was to read a book by a favorite author. I have The Opposite of Magic by Colleen Cowley. Colleen Cowley wrote the Subversive trilogy, which I just finished last year and absolutely loved. And I feel like I would definitely consider her a favorite author at this point because I also really loved her short story that was in a fantasy romance anthology that I read. And this is I don't know if it's a standalone. I think it is. It's set in a different world than the Subversive series, and it's kind of a contemporary fantasy, which is not always something I like, but I feel like I'm gonna really like it here. And also, this is one of my favorite tropes, which is like the non-chosen one, because our main female character is extraordinary in the way that she has absolutely no magic, like zero magic, no magic at all, and that ends up being important in the story, and I really like that. And I think there's going to be a like hate to love romance between her and this guy who is the IT worker at their job. Oh, okay, wait, maybe this is set in the world of her other series because it says he's a 30-year-old IT worker instead of a proper silver-haired mage, and they disliked each other the minute they met. So like the silver hair thing is in her other series, so I don't know. But I'm excited to read this, and I really love her writing. I love the way she does characters and relationships, so I feel like this one is going to really work for me as well. It's pretty much been on my radar since I was really loving her trilogy, so. Okay, my battery light is flashing, so those are some books I'm excited to read in February. Let me know something you're excited to read, or if you're participating in any of these things. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye! Love the panicked outro.